To save our soul, we must profess the whole Catholic faith. And if you got a bishop or a priest, if I was one day, God forbid, and heaven help me, and our Blessed Mother and our guardian angel, but if ever I were to say to you, you can go to the new Mass, it nourishes your faith, you can find fulfillment in the new Mass. I have become a wolf, I have become a traitor to our Lord, I have become a traitor to the Catholic faith. And any bishop who speaks this way, and there are many, and one of them in the traditional ranks, whom you know, pray for him, but this is a very deadly game because it's deadly to souls. And it's very serious to teach this error, and he knows better. The 4 bishops of Archbishop Lefebvre know better, because he told them clearly, and his stand was very clear. Don't tell the faithful to go to the new Mass. It's poisonous, it's dangerous. Don't go to the indult Mass. And now we got to say, it's extremely dangerous to your soul to go to the new SSPX Mass. Now, that sounds crazy, but the fact is they have compromised on matters of the faith. That's the deadly position they have chosen to take. So, why have good Catholic bishops? To keep the integral Catholic faith and to feed the flock with the real faith, and who have real priests who give the real faith. And that's why you got to ask, do the priests who come to bring the traditional Mass, are they in line with Archbishop Lefebvre or not? Are they in line with all of Catholic tradition or not? If they're not, and they're promoting the new Mass in any way, it's better not to go and just pray for them. Because this is too serious a battle to play games with your eternal soul. So what do? You have to judge in the light of Catholic tradition, and I repeat, our greatest guide in this total mess is Archbishop Lefebvre's clarity. And the Virgin Mary of Quito spoke about him in the 1600s. She said there'll be a prelate at the end of the 20th century who will preserve the priesthood, preserve the faith. And who is that? Cardinal Ratzinger? No. It's none of these modernists, and none of these wish-wash and spineless bishops. It's the Archbishop Lefebvre. It's very clear. No one else fills that definition. Nobody. So, number 2, Archbishop Lefebvre, the second reason he gives to Bishop de Castelmayor, because the conciliar church is now spreading throughout the world, spreading errors contrary to the Catholic faith, and because of these errors has corrupted the sources of grace, which are the sacrifice of the Mass and the sacraments. This false church is in even deeper rupture with the Catholic Church. This false church of the Council is in deep rupture, split from the Catholic Church. But we have Pope Francis, who is head of the church. But what church? He's head of the Catholic Church by his position as Pope and successor of Peter and Vicar of Christ, but he's also head of that counter church, which is the conciliar church. So as John Maturin said many years ago, and other Catholic authors, Amero, who wrote Iota Unum, he also said this: in the past you would have 3 popes over 1 church, the 3 anti-popes. But now we've got 1 pope over 2 churches. And we got to take our pick. What church do you want to belong to? The conciliar new church, to guarantee your damnation, or the traditional Catholic Church of all time? And that's where we have to stand. And that's why, of course, we are here. So this false church is even in deeper rupture with the Catholic Church. It follows from these principles, number 3, that it is absolutely necessary to continue the Catholic episcopacy in order to continue the Catholic Church. This is my opinion. I think it is based on the fundamental laws of ecclesiastical law and on tradition. And Archbishop Lefebvre, at another time, he said in 1988 that he concluded that recourse to Rome, quote, recourse to Rome always physically possible, is rendered morally impossible by the spirit of which the Holy Father is penetrated. Which is, what are these errors? Communion with false religions. An adulterous spirit that blows in the church. This spirit is not Catholic. For example, Pope Francis just repeated what Pope John Paul II did, which was there's a recent union with him with all these Buddhists and all these Mormons and all these false religions. It is truly a betrayal to the faith. Archbishop Lefebvre continues, for 20 years we have been working patiently and steadfastly to make the Roman authorities understand the need to return to sound doctrine and tradition for the renewal of the church, the salvation of souls, and the glory of God. But they, Rome, modernist Rome, remain deaf to our supplications. Much more, we are asked to recognize the legitimacy of the whole council and the reforms that ruin the church. So you see, there's a good shepherd speaking, and he is worried about souls. And Archbishop Lefebvre, he basically was a martyr for the faith without shedding his blood. He was a white martyr. And even in his 80s, he was traveling the world to take care of souls. So your souls here in Liverpool, your souls need to be nourished and fed. And that's why, for me anyway, a priest of Archbishop Lefebvre, it's a joy to come and bring you the Mass, bring you the sacraments, bring you the true doctrine, and to remind you we're in war. And stay with the true faith, stay with Catholic tradition, and don't go with the new direction of the new SSPX, and beware of also the false resistance. That's what it is. And as I said, a lot of fingers point to Bishop Follet because he's betrayed the cause. But just as many fingers also point to, sad to say, Bishop Williamson. Why? Because he's promoting this idea of the new Mass that gives grace, and you can go to it and nourish your soul, and the new Mass miracles. These are errors, and I'm not bashing them and condemning them myself, but I'm condemning their errors, and I have to. And I fear myself, because I could fall too. If these good saintly bishops, consecrated by Archbishop Lefebvre, could fall to compromise, who of us can stand? It's frightening, indeed it is, but we still have to condemn error. And it's humility to point out these are errors. They are dangerous to your salvation, dangerous to your souls. You must not follow them. So pray for the priests who have joined with the false resistance. They've agreed basically to be silent on these questions that endanger souls. And they're not being real shepherds. They're not being real shepherds. They're being like wolves. So they have a duty to speak out. If a shepherd is leading the sheep into poisonous grass, where there's tons of poisonous copperheads. Copperheads are poisonous snakes in the US, and they're worse than rattlers, because rattlers will at least warn you, and you just stay away. But copperheads, they have a copper-colored head. They go right to you, and they'll bite. And they can throw themselves too. So if a shepherd is leading the sheep into a nest of copperheads, and the other shepherds sit and watch, and they just agree, well, I can't say anything because the shepherd he's the boss. I just can't say anything against him. I have to have fidelity to him more than to Christ. Those are false shepherds. And that goes for me too. I speak very honestly and openly. If I submitted myself to Bishop Williamson, which I would love to do if he held the line of Archbishop Lefebvre, and I hope he will. I still have hope he will come back to that. Same with all the other bishops. But if he's teaching these errors, which are misleading souls, and I come under him and I take the duct tape on my mouth and stop preaching against those errors, what have I become? But a tinkling cymbal and a useless salt that lost its flavor, worth to be stepped on and trampled on by men. That's the reality. So we just can't go with that false resistance. Pray for them. Pray for them. Father, you knew Father Morgan. You knew, well, 2 priests in France just recently left. One in the U.S. is very favorable to the resistance. Let's hope for more. But the solution is not to go fidelity to Bishop Williamson. It's not. It's fidelity to Christ, the Catholic tradition, and Archbishop Lefebvre and all the popes. But if Bishop Williamson or Bishop Fillet or Bishop Tissier or Bishop Gallaretta come back to the line of Archbishop Lefebvre, then most gladly we will throw ourselves at their feet and humbly submit gladly. Gladly. But of course, they don't have jurisdiction either. The Pope alone can give that. And the Pope is a mess. So dear friends, dear faithful here in Liverpool, we're in war, and do not forget these simple facts. Our Lady made it very easy for us to save our soul. The rosary, the scapular. Deepen in the faith, because we got to counter those errors she spoke of. And part of the communist errors, one of the famous strategies, or tactics of the communists, is what modernist Rome has been doing all along, which is dialogue. Dialogue to death. And their aim is get the one you're dialoguing with, Rome and Bishop Fillet and the leaders of the SSPX, get them slowly to take your position, get them slowly to compromise, get them slowly to accept the new conciliar errors. And that's what's happened. The proof is the Doctrinal Declaration, General Chapter Statement of 2012, 6 conditions binding the Society to the agreement with Rome, the giving by Pope Francis jurisdiction for confessions, marriages, and holy orders, and now more and more friendly terms, wine and cheese, with all the local diocesan modernist bishops throughout the world. And this is, they've laid down their weapons by silence. And that's, we can't go there. So dear little flock, persevere. And I don't know when this will end. I'm no prophet. But I do know this. Like St. Joan of Arc, she said, it may not be ours to see victory, but it is now for us to battle. It's now for us to battle on. And this is your great crown. And think of all the English martyrs who said Mass in these houses during the persecution. All those great priests who came through Liverpool and saying Mass in the people's homes and being hunted down like animals, and many martyred, and many who were hanged, drawn, and quartered in London. They didn't compromise the faith. And all of them were asked. The lay people, they were told, just go once to the Anglican Mass. And that's a Mass in Latin, facing the altar, the most conservative Anglican Mass you can find, and they would have lived. But these martyrs said, no, I cannot go to this compromised Mass, because it compromised the faith. And that goes for the priests also. The priests were told, just sign this oath of succession, or they sign the oath of supremacy, and you're scot-free. We'll let you go. And they refused. And many of them, of course, were hanged, drawn, and quartered. Let me just quote one example. St. John Roberts, who was a Benedictine monk, he was told to render his loyalty and obedience to the king. And this is what he said. "No, my lord," said Father Roberts patiently, "I do not deceive, but try to lead back to the right path those poor wandering souls whom you and your foolish ministers have led astray, and infected with 1,000 deceits and heresies. If I deceive, then were our ancestors deceived by blessed St. Augustine, the apostle of the English, who was sent here by the Pope of Rome, St. Gregory the Great, and who converted this country from error to the Christian and Roman Catholic faith. This same faith which he professed, I now teach. Nay, I am of the same religious order, Benedictine, and I have been professed of the same rule as St. Augustine, and I am sent here by the same apostolic see that sent him before me. And then some of the Protestants got all upset when he spoke this in the courtroom, and they were ordered to be silent, and he continued, I must speak, he replied, as my mission is from heaven. St. Matthew says, chapter 18, Go ye and teach all nations, baptizing them and teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. Your ministers do not do this, because they do not fulfill in their lives and actions the command of Christ. They do not administer the sacrament of penance or of extreme unction. I do, and withal I teach obedience to princes as a matter of conscience against the false doctrine of Luther and his companions. All this I can prove to you, for you indeed, sir. He continued, addressing the Bishop of London, There is no time more suitable than now. Your lordship professes to be a man of learning, and you are considered a bishop among the rest. I am here to speak in defense of the faith, my profession, and my religious rule, and I demand to be heard. So the whole court case went on and dragged on, which I won't read the whole thing. But let it be just said that St. John Roberts, he was condemned to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. And that's how he gave his life for the faith. He was martyred in his Benedictine habit, like Blessed Mark Barkworth. So dear little flock, let's ask the Virgin Mary, beg her to help us to persevere in the faith of all time. Without this faith, we cannot save our soul. But it's easy to know this faith. Our old catechism, the Council of Trent catechism, the writings of the saints, the doctors of the church. Go to these things. Feed your souls. And let's now go to the divine heart of Jesus, who, when the words of the priests are spoken, the words of consecration, the fire of the Blessed Trinity, the divine fire of the heart of Jesus comes down on this altar. And he ignites your souls when you receive him in Holy Communion. It's the flood of all graces from Calvary that is reenacted in the Mass. So come and drink of this refreshing sweet wine of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and ask the Virgin Mary to dispose us, to fill all our soul with all the graces possible today at this Mass, so that we really fight on for heaven, which is our real home, which happiness I wish you all. O Mary conceived without sin. O Mary conceived without sin. O Mary conceived without sin. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Credo in unum Deum Patrem omnipotentem Fatorem Charitatere, visibilium omnium et invisibilium, et in unum Dominum Iesum Christum Filium Dei unigenitum, et es Patre natum ante omnia saecula, Deum de Deo, lumen de lumine, Deum verum de Deo vero, genitum non fatum consubstantialem Patri, perquam omnia fata sunt, qui propter nos homines et propter nostrum salutem descendit de celis. Et incarnatus est Spiritus Sancto, ex Maria Virgine, et homo factus est. Crucifixus etiam pro nobis Pontius Pilato passus et sepultus est. Et resurrexit tertia die, secundum Scripturas, et ascendit in caelum, sed ad dexteram Patris et iterum venturos est cum gloria, judicare vivos et mortuos, cuius regni non erit finis, et in Spiritum Sanctum Dominum et vivificantem, qui es Patre, Filioque procedit, qui combatere et Filio simuladorator, et conglorificator, qui locutus est per prophetas, et unam sanctam catholicam et apostolicam ecclesiam conviteor unum baptisma in remissionem peccatorum et in spiritu resurrectionem mortuorum et vitam venturi saeculi. Amen. Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Oremus. Populum venam salvum facies Domine, et oculus supervolum humiliabis quoniam Christ Deus praetor te Domine. Orate, fratres,
Suscite ad Dominus sacrificium Dominus tuus et ad gloria nominis sui, et regnat ad coca nostrum, Churchus spet, ecclesia suis
per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Sursum corda.
Habemus ad Domino.
Gratias agamus Domino Deum nostrum.
Dignum et justum est.
Vere dignum et justum est tecum et salutare. Nos tibi semper ubique gratias agere. Domine Sande Pater omnipotens et tenet Deus, et ten veneratione beatem Mariae semper virginis cola. Vere dignum et justum est tecum et salutare, nos tibi semper ubique gratias agere. Domine Sande Pater omnipotens et tenet Deus, qui cum unigenitor Filio Tuo Spiritus Sancto, unus est Deus, unus est Dominus, non in unius singularitate personae, sed in unius trinitate substantiae, quod enim de Tua gloria, revelante te credimus, hoc de Filio Tuo, hoc de Spiritus Sancto, sine differentia discretionis sentimus, et in confessione veris in iniquitatis, et in personis proprietas, et in essentia unitas, et in majestate adoratori qualitas, quam laudant angeli atque ac angeli, cherubim quoque ac seraphim, qui non cessante clamare quotidie, una voce dicentes. Sanctus, 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 Dominus Deus Sabaoth, Magnus in caeli et terra, gloria tua, hosanna in excelsis. Benedictus qui venit in nomine Domini, hosanna in excelsis. Nobis quoque peccatori.